Hey there everyone, Mr. Straneri here. I just want to take a couple minutes and kind of give everybody a brief overview of our classroom model this year and how it's going to be different from what you've seen in the past. We call it a flipped classroom. And this is just going to be a short video kind of going over everything that a flipped classroom and our flipped classroom is going to entail. Before we get into that, let's quickly go over what a traditional classroom setup would look like on any given day. Usually starts at most with like a 15-minute warm-up. So this is after everybody gets in, they get settled, their books get taken out, their notebooks, I get into the classroom. It's about 15 or so minutes. Then it usually moves into a 40 to 50-minute lecture. So we're talking sitting in your seat. It's driven by me, the teacher. Every other day, or so, it could be something different. But for the most of the year, it's going to be a lecture-based lesson. And then towards the end of the block, it's going to be about 10 to 15 minutes worth of reflections or working on problems or anything like that. That's usually how most of the classroom time went. And I'm thinking back to myself, what would be the best use of my time with my students? Because a lot of the times I'm usually up there just talking and doing everything. And I think to myself, there's got to be a better way. And this is where the flipped classroom model comes into play. Again, in a traditional classroom, the lesson is delivered via lecture. Kids sit around, they take notes, they go home, they work on problems on their own, usually a lot of times confused because they're rushing through their notes, because the pace of the classroom is driven by me. I have to stop, I have to keep going, answering questions, and this works for some students, but for the majority of them, it probably doesn't work. When we get to a flipped classroom, everything is going to reverse itself. So at home, the homework now is going to be in the form of a video lesson that I've already pre-recorded. At most, we're talking about 10, 15 minutes worth of video that the students will then go home, will go over their notes. This is how the notes will start to be delivered for each and individual lesson. This way, when we come into class, this is where the flipped part comes in. When it gets to class, we have those 40 to 50 minutes to go over the notes, to actually say, okay, well, what can we do with this? We can go over different activities. It gives me more time to provide support to the students that might not have been able to really grasp all of those notes. So instead of going through and struggling at home, we're going to flip the script, I should say, and do all these activities and the practice problems here in the classroom. So why am I doing this? Well, there's three big reasons for me to go through and say what I'm flipping my classroom for. The first one is that everyone learns at a different pace. So like I said a little bit earlier, when we're lecturing, it's usually me that's driving the pace of the lecture. I can stop for questions, but for the most part, I kind of have to guess to see, well, does everybody have their notes copied down? Does everybody kind of understand that? Did I spend enough time on that example? With a flipped classroom, when the students are viewing the video at home, they can stop, they can copy the notes down, they can fast forward if they really get the topic, if they've done it before, they can rewatch it 2 or 3 times. It really helps to create their own pace instead of being at the mercy of me, who knows everything and kind of go through and, speed through it. They can slow things down and they can go at their own pace. The second thing is, once we get into the year, I understand that everyone misses class time. I miss class time. My students miss class time. But by flipping it, the videos are always online. They can always go back, rewatch it. So they can take, if the student happens to be out for 2 or 3 days of class, they can always go back and view that lecture. They're never going to miss out on material. They're always going to be able to get the notes, see exactly how I want it done, instead of going through and talking to their friend and seeing shortcuts and this and that and going through and kind of, meandering their way through the material, because everything in chemistry starts to build on itself. So if they miss 1 or 2 lessons in a unit, it might come back to hurt them later on in the year. But with a flip model, if they miss class time, that lecture is always there for them. The third is that I get more one-on-one time with my students. So instead of me just walking around lecturing everything, I get to sit down with the students that might be struggling, or I get to push the students that get it. I get to give them a little more difficult problems. I get to kind of tailor exactly what we do each day because I already know the content was delivered on the video lesson. I don't have to worry about who got it, who didn't, or the notes done. I get more one-on-one time with my students. So what's homework going to look like now? Well, the video is going to be online. You're going to go through. It'll be on YouTube. The link will always be on the class wiki, and the links will never get taken down. They're going to then take the notes and complete the practice problems where I have it. Some lessons do, some lessons don't. And that's pretty much it. Each video is going to run probably 10, 15 minutes long. It's not terribly long. It gets all the points through that I need to. I don't want them to be sitting there in front of the computer for 3 hours or 4 hours with watching these videos. I'd like to get 2 or 3 videos in a week, depending on how many times I meet with the class. And then that means what's the average day in our class then going to look like if all the videos are online? Well, we're still going to have that warm-up. We're going to review the topics they watched the night before. This is in the form of what I like to call quick checks. We can answer any questions from the prior night's video if they have any particular questions, and then we can really get into the in-class activities. This is where I don't have to go through and deliver lessons. We can work on projects. We can do multiple day labs. We can have just regular old practice problem days where we can work together as a group, as a class, and solve some of these problems in chemistry that we're wondering about. Or we could just have a regular work time where they can view certain videos if they want to go back and rewatch them. If I see that a lot of people have questions, we can have work time like that. And that's pretty much what the overview of the classroom is going to look like this year. Now we're going to be able to change things on the fly depending on what works for each class. If anyone has any questions, my email is right above us. And I'm more than willing to answer any kind of questions that anyone might have. Thanks for watching. Hope it wasn't too long for you, and I'll see you guys in class.